Choosing parts for your computer can seem daunting. After all, you've got so many different things to think about, limited budget, and of course you want to maximise your bang for the buck. And this is precisely the reason that in this video, I'm going to go through all of the parts on a computer and show you exactly what you should be buying to make your next PC power through life for years to come. We'll be looking at how to extract the maximum amount of frames per second when choosing a powerhouse gaming rig, as well as getting the most versatile computer possible for all of your editing and workflow needs. A massive thank you to PC Specialist and Nvidia for sponsoring this video. Let's get started. Let's start with the basics. What makes a PC actually good? Well, spending more on parts will always make your system better, but I personally always judge a system on its performance, and actually a lot of PC parts won't always affect this in a meaningful way. The first thing to do is to actually understand what you're going to be using your computer for. Is this for gaming? Is it for editing? Is it for photography? CAD? What are you actually going to do with this? And from there you can work out what it is that you actually need. Video games are almost always limited by the graphics horsepower inside your gaming PC, and as such, choosing the best graphics card you can will let you play at faster frame rates, high resolutions, and even enable new features like ray tracing. Editing PCs, on the other hand, are slightly different because it's going to vary depending on what app you're actually going to be using, as some of them require loads of CPU horsepower, others graphics, others RAM or SSD. As I say, it's going to depend exactly on what app you're going to use. As a general rule of thumb though, the speed of your processor and the number of cores has a massive impact in pretty much all applications, and better processors should yield better results. You probably also noticed that cameras are getting smaller, more affordable, but fundamentally that the resolutions of these things are increasing massively. This means that you have larger file sizes, so you're going to need somewhere to store this, but when it comes to actually editing it, you need a very fast drive to be able to access all of these files, especially if you're accessing multiple files at the same time, along with loads of memory so you can edit it without stuttering. Over the last 10 years or so, applications have also shifted away from pure CPU dependencies to actually using GPU acceleration. In plain English, this means spreading the load across both the processor and the graphics, allowing each component to adopt tasks that are better suited to their structures and their strengths. In Vinci Resolve, for example, the GPU can be used to decode high-resolution footage on your timeline, allowing for stutter-free playback whilst editing. There's actually a quick and easy cheats way of finding a brilliant PC for editing, and that's to look for the Nvidia Studio logo, which acts as validation that you're getting a great system for creative applications. And GPU acceleration works with a trio of core features. Because you've got loads of cores inside. Okay, whatever. No jokes ever again on this channel. Ampere and the brand new Ada GPU architecture break down into three sections: CUDA, Tensor, and RT cores. CUDA cores are used for game rendering and traditional creative acceleration. Tensor cores are all about artificial intelligence for DLSS gaming and smart workflow tools. In Resolve 18, for example, Magic Mask and noise removal take full advantage of tensor cores, allowing for faster, cutting-edge production workflows. RTX GPUs are also equipped with RT cores for real-time ray tracing in video games and simulating environments in things like Blender. Generally speaking, the better the graphics card, the faster your application will run. And it's also worth noting that you do tend to get more video memory, and quite often it's even faster on the better graphics cards, which means if you're working with a very large project, especially something with Blender or maybe a video project with loads and loads of effects, then you're going to need more video memory to actually be able to hold everything, and in some instances it won't run at all if you don't have the required amount of video memory. So please bear this in mind if you're using one of those pretty intensive applications. For example, Nvidia's brand new 40 series of GPUs accelerate apps better than ever, with up to 50% faster export times versus the previous generation in Resolve, along with a load of AI accelerated tools that really do take advantage of the tensor cores within these GPUs. On this topic, by the way, fun fact, I was actually using the free version of Vinci Resolve for the first 3-4 years that I was doing all my editing on that app, not knowing that when you upgrade to the premium version, that's when you get the GPU acceleration. And it was quite funny because when I did finally upgrade, my PC that was currently at 90, 95, even 100 degrees on the CPU because everything was maxed out, the cooling wasn't great. Sometimes the export would fail because it would overheat, genuine true story. And I was going to upgrade, to a better CPU and these sorts of things. But I bought the app for Resolve, the more premium one, and it took over with GPU acceleration, and then everything was just so much faster. My PC wasn't overheating anymore, and I could actually do more effects and things with my rig. But that was more a case of I didn't know we weren't using GPU. So lesson learned, GPU acceleration Good. But yes, anyway, the long and short of it is that while there are definitely similarities between an editing PC and a gaming PC, fundamentally they are actually quite different because you need to make sure that the components that you're actually going to use are the ones that are prioritized when it comes to choosing all of your parts. So let's get serious and help you choose what to buy. A good gaming PC should actually be based around your graphics card. That's the first component I would choose, with a good enough processor to actually be able to keep up with it. And I know there are so many different graphics cards to choose from, different models, different variants, so please have a look at the benchmarks first to see how each card performs, and then you can find one that hits your target resolution and refresh rate, and ultimately hits the FPS and performance that you're actually going to want and need. I would also advise a little bit of caution around the very big, bulky coolers, because it's going to depend on the exact model that you go for and obviously your budget, but a good way to save money is to, instead of going for like the top of the line, super huge card like this Aorus Master, maybe look at something like the Aorus Eagle, or the Gigabyte Eagle as I think this one is called, because while it's not going to be quite so good when it comes to cooling and maybe noise levels, in this day and age there's not actually as much difference between the two as you might think, and it will save yourself some cash. In terms of the processor, or the CPU, something like an Intel i5 or Ryzen 5 should be enough for most rigs, but high-end graphics cards like the brand new Nvidia 4080 and 4090 will require an Intel i7 or a Ryzen 9 CPU for the highest possible frame rates, especially if you're playing at 1080p or 1440p. And if you are interested in what the best gaming CPU actually is, what one you should pair with your rig, I've literally just made a video all about this topic. You can find it in the top right corner of your screen. Unlike our editing PC, RAM capacity isn't actually as important as you might expect, and most gamers will probably get away with just 16 gigabytes. But when it comes to RAM speed, this is something that might be worth upgrading. 3600 MHz of DDR4, or if you're on a newer platform, 5200, 5600 MHz, I'd argue these are the sweet spots. It's actually the reverse with SSDs though. I'm still not entirely convinced that Gen 4 drives are a game changer, but running out of storage space certainly is. I'd go for a 1 or 2 terabyte drive if you could afford it, and opt for what I would describe as an entry-level Gen 4 drive. As discussed, an editing PC will need to be a little bit more personal to you, so work out what apps you're actually going to be using it for, what sort of things you need to accelerate, and then prioritize those components. For me, I edit 3 6K Blackmagic cameras all at the same time. So my priority is a GPU that can accelerate the B-raw decode process, as well as a fast multi-core CPU to handle pretty much everything else, along with a PCI Gen 4 SSD and at least 32 gigabytes of RAM. Though to be fair, if I was on Adobe Premiere, I'd probably need 64, maybe even more. I'm also a huge fan of the brand new dual AV1 NVENC encoders baked straight into 40 series, as I can capture gameplay with OBS in super high quality, but at smaller file sizes, before editing this all together in Resolve and then exporting again in AV1. And if you're brand new to codecs and you're wondering why this is such a big deal, well, the AV1 codec allows for smaller, higher quality files, which makes it perfect for exporting to the web. The downside is that it's harder to edit on the timeline, as well as encode and export, which is exactly why the new Nvidia encoders are a huge boon for editors and game capture. Put all of this together, and a graphics card can enable faster editing with AI tools, miles quicker rendering with GPU acceleration and on-die encoding, and higher quality exports with AV1. And I know what you're thinking. Are you seriously going to have this system on the desk and not actually talk about it? No, we're going to do that just now. This is an RTX Studio editing PC that was put together by the lovely guys over at PC Specialist. When I say put together lovingly, I mean, look at the cable management. This is actually much better than I can do. We've got an RTX 4090 graphics card here with 24 gigabytes of GDDR6X VRAM. We've got an i9 13900K CPU. I think we've got 64 gigabytes of RAM in this, so there's actually room for expandability to 128 as it's only with the 2 DIMMs. And then we've got a Corsair case here. This is the 5000T with plenty of RGB. Though I will add that you can turn the RGB off. We've got the RGB off on the graphics card, but then everything else is illuminated. You can set it up how you like. Because it's a pre-build, Windows was pre-installed right out the gates. You just had to take it out the box, plug in the power cord, and bang, you're done. And looking at what would usually be the ugly section of your system, again, you can see the immaculate cable management that PC Specialist does to save yourself time and effort. I mean, I say that, my cable management is always immaculate. Isn't that right, Carl? Why do you bully me? PC specialists have masses of computers available, be it a gaming rig, one for anything creative, and you can even create your own if you're wanting something a little bit more custom. You can check them out with the link located down below. So at this stage, I think you know what to prioritize when you're building yourself a gaming PC, but the question a lot of people always ask me is, how do you save money? How do you get your system to cost as little as possible, but still maintaining the performance? This is where you listen to me, or you don't, and you go listen to the tech chap. I realise we haven't done a video in so long together that people genuinely think we're enemies. Tech chap. Arguably, one of the first things I would do to cut costs is to look at a cheaper motherboard, because these days they seem to be getting so expensive, it's getting out of hand. And while some of them are definitely awesome and worth the cash, there are others that are just a straight up waste of money. For gaming PCs, entry level to mid-tier is probably all you ever need. I mean, who actually overclocks their CPU, uses every port on their motherboard, and needs the absolute fastest connections like Thunderbolt? Probably not most, but do keep an eye out for Wi-Fi support, as I'd argue that this is something a lot of people want, but isn't always found on cheaper motherboards. Of course, if you are a creative though, Thunderbolt might be really useful, along with 10 gig Ethernet and better I/O. So just find the cheapest board that actually meets your needs, regardless of whether it's for editing, gaming, or pretty much anything else. Another one is the power supply. I'm all for a little bit of future-proofing, but don't go buying a 1200 watt unit if you're looking at spending like £600–700 on a PC. It just doesn't make any sense. There are in fact online calculators that you can use to help you work out the exact wattage that you're going to need, but to be honest, usually I would just go with the minimum that your graphics card manufacturer recommends on the box. I would, however, strongly consider getting a brand new power supply that actually has a PCI Gen 5 connector for the brand new Nvidia graphics cards, as this will make it look a lot nicer than a 2, 3, or even 4-way adapter. CPU cooling is definitely an interesting one, as this is not only going to depend on the exact CPU that you're going to use, but then also the case that you're going to try and fit it in. Most budget systems can use the free included stock cooler that will come with your Intel or Ryzen CPU, but if you're looking at something mid-range or above, chances are you're going to want to go aftermarket. You can get great looking, wallet-friendly coolers for between £30 and £50. That's going to be brilliant at the mid-range. Or with higher end systems, you might want to opt for either a very big tower cooler or arguably a better looking all-in-one liquid system. You never really need to go for the most expensive option, but please make sure that whatever cooling you're going for is going to be enough for the CPU to actually keep it cool and do its job. But then if you're going for something perhaps a little bit bigger, then it will actually fit in your chassis. And the good way of checking is to go into the manufacturer's website, as they give you the maximum cooler specifications for both air coolers and then radiator support on the top and on the front. And then lastly, we have the case, or the chassis. And this is always a little bit of a difficult one because people say different things, because of course it's a very personal preference. But I think my main bit of advice is don't go too big, just for the sake of it. Like, if you're going to stuff it to the brim for the components, brilliant. But I used a case a few years ago that was just so big, and I barely took up any sort of space in it whatsoever. And I was just thinking, why? It was either on my desk taking up the whole thing, or it was under my desk, and then I've got people like you going, oh, why is it under your desk? Which is a fair point. I'd say that a mid-range ATX enclosure is always a good bet. Around about £100 gets you a very well-made chassis with enough features to keep all of your hardware happy. Personally, I'd always go for something that was focused on airflow, as you'll end up with a quieter and cooler system, but the fundamental thing is that everything you buy needs to fit inside here. So please, don't go buying a small chassis and then buying a massive graphics card and going, oh, it doesn't fit, because you could have planned that. Graphics cards in particular, you need something that's very long to fit all of these new ones in. And then obviously, if you're going for a smaller micro ATX or ITX system, that you've got enough width to actually fit the card in. Because if it doesn't fit, you'll be sad. If you do want to learn a little bit more about cases, as well as find out my absolute favourites and what I'd recommend, you can find this video, by the way, in the top right-hand corner of your screen. But there we are! Hopefully this has been a very quick and concise rundown of all of the parts in a system, I guess as quickly as possible without omitting the key information. There's a lot more detail, and I've done loads of videos on every single component if you do want to learn a little bit more. Links to everything basically is down in the description below. But let me know your thoughts. Are you rocking a gaming PC, an editing PC? Has this video been useful? Let me know down in the comment section below, but absolutely smash the like button if you've enjoyed this and get yourself subscribed. And if you are interested in learning more about this system, then you can find it linked down below in the description, along with the link to the PC Centric mouse mat, pccentric.store. But thank you so much for watching this video. I'll catch you in the next one.